When our coach Celine first came to work with us, she told me that she was getting married to this man who had once told her that he never wanted to get married. And so, being the relationship nerd that I am, I went and talked to her fiance at the time because I wanted to know what was it that made him decide to go from this place of never ever wanting to get married ever to anybody to all of a sudden deciding that Celine was the woman that he wanted in his life forever. And so I talked to him over the phone, and he started describing all these things that were happening between him and Celine and how he felt about her. And eventually it all came down to this one thing where he said that he just loved her and appreciated her and connected with her so much that he felt like he couldn't imagine being on this journey of life without having Celine in his arms. And he wanted to show her how much he loved her. And his expression of that was going to be getting down on one knee and putting a ring on her finger and showing her that even a man who said that he was never going to get married would marry her and just show her how amazing and awesome and wonderful she is to him. And so I took that idea and I was looking at all the things that he talked about, and it was very, very clear to me what he was talking about. He was talking about something that I call the partnership principle. And so what is a man really looking for in a lifelong relationship? Hello, my name's Matthew Coast, and welcome to my channel. And today we're going to be talking about the partnership principle, how to have him see you as someone that he can be with in the far future, how to make him see you as somebody that he wants to be with forever, someone that he can love and adore and cherish forever. So if you want to know about that, go ahead and type yes in the comments section, and let's get started here. So the partnership principle, what is the partnership principle? How do you connect with a man through this idea called the partnership principle? We're going to talk about, there's 4 different elements here that you want to use. Element number one, part 1 of the partnership principle is having matching values. And this is by far one of the most important things. And it's one of those things that a lot of people, men and women, they seem to they seem to just ignore or forget. And it's so vital, right? Because your values, the things that are really important to you, that you value really highly, they need to be aligned. Who you are deep down, the things that you value in your life need to be in alignment with each other. So for instance, let's take religion, because this is a big one. If religion is very important to you, to one of you, but the other person is an atheist, that could be a major problem. It doesn't have to necessarily be, but it could be a very big problem in the relationship. And you need to decide whether that's actually a deal breaker or not, and you need to find out from him whether that's actually a deal breaker or not. What are his values? What are your values? Do those values align? And can you guys be with each other for a long-term period of time? Also, he needs to feel like he can live his purpose with you. So purpose is one of the foundational elements of what it means to be a man. I actually had a woman in our community talking about how she wanted to become the number one priority for this man that she was dating because he had to work a lot, right? And she's like, how do I get him to quit his job and, spend more time with me and make me the number one priority instead of his work or, his children or whatever other things he has going on in his life. However, that's actually dysfunction, right? So you want to be in the top 3 priorities. You don't want to derail his entire life and be the only thing in his life, right? What is he going to do? Quit his job and you guys are just going to live together poor? Like you don't want to do that, right? That's not healthy. That's dysfunction. And so if you're here with us right now, say hi in the chat and tell us where in the world you're watching this from. It's cool to see women. We have women from like, 50, 60 countries showing up on some of these chats. It's pretty cool. So number 2 is being on the same team. And so this is also another really, really important one because it can completely destroy, make or break a relationship. It can destroy a relationship, and it can make a relationship blossom and grow. And so he needs to not be fighting you in order to get his needs met. Sure, there is an element that you want to be investing in each other. You want him to be putting in energy and effort because that's what makes somebody, that's one of the things that makes somebody value something. But you want it to be easy for him to get his needs met through you because that's what creates an emotional bond that's really difficult to break. And you want to make it so that he doesn't need to play games in order to be with you, because playing games it's just horrible and painful. And after a while, it becomes one of those things that just completely destroys a relationship. So my suggestion is that if either of you needs to play games in order to be in the relationship, my suggestion is that maybe you should find somebody else to be with, because it's just going to turn into a toxic downward spiral into nonsense, and you're going to have to do it forever. And if somebody stops doing it, the power dynamics is going to shift drastically, and then you're going to end up getting broken up with or divorced or whatever the situation can be. And it really, if you're doing that kind of stuff, it's really just a toxic relationship there. And then the next one is that he needs to have somebody that's on his side, right? This is part of being on the same team. So somebody who's on his side, who's going through this challenging journey of life together with him. So you should be the champion and the cheerleader for each other. If it feels like it's you versus him too often, that's a relationship that is doomed for failure. They've actually done research on this. It's my favorite phrase in the world. They've actually done research on this, and they found that if it's the two of you against each other, they can tell pretty quickly how long your relationship's going to last if you guys are constantly fighting each other and it's you versus him. If it's you guys together going towards something, you're far more likely to stay together for the long term. If you're not on the same team, the relationship is not worth being in. Trust me on this. It's a painful thing to have to fight each other. So number three of the partnership principle is he needs to feel like you get him. This is probably one of the least understood yet most important principles that you can possibly learn when it comes to connecting with a man. And it's actually the same with him connecting with you as well. Because when you feel like somebody really gets you, it's like you feel a deeper connection with them. You feel more connected to that person. When a man really feels like you get him, that's a deeper level of intimacy than he will have with 99% of the people on the planet. And so you can have that kind of a connection with a man if you show him that you get him, that you understand him, you see him, and who he actually is, who he really is deep down. So love him for who he is and see him for who he is becoming. That is one of the most powerful. It's such a powerful thing that you can do. It's just connect where he is right now, right? Love him for who he is. One of the biggest mistakes that a lot of women make who come to me is they're like loving a man's potential. They're like, I see him becoming this really successful guy in the future, which is cool, right? And it's important if he's not at a level of success right now, that he has this vision and this purpose and this direction that he's going towards being a man that respects himself, that, you can respect even more. But if you can't respect him right now, if you can't love him for who he is right now, then you probably shouldn't be with him, because it's very possible that he's not going to end up reaching that ultimate goal that he's trying to get to. And so you want to be able to love him and respect him where he is right now. If you get what I'm talking about, say I get it in the chat. If you don't get what I'm talking about, go ahead and ask your questions. We will get to them here in just a little second here. Just a little second, little minute. 1 second, 1 minute. Anyway, I think I was mixing phrases there. Number four is you need to have likeness. And so the things that we have that are opposite of each other, our differences, are often the things that create passion and attraction between two people. But it's our similarities that help us stay together, that help us grow and stay together. When super couples, or also known as couples who do really well together, talk about the times that really bonded them. They talk about the things that they did together, projects that they had together, difficult times where they went through those times together and they came out the other side, shared experiences that they had. It all boils down to this thing that I call likeness. And there are things, there are things from your past, your present, and your future that you shared together, but it doesn't have to be huge stuff, right? So you just want to connect on things. Any things that you have that are commonalities, those are great things to connect with each other on and have those things and make sure, because it's one of those things that can be really, really attractive when you meet somebody that's totally in a different world, right? But if you don't have enough things that are in common, eventually it'll start wearing on you and it'll become feeling exhausting because they're so different. They're in such a different world. And you need to have a level of things that are different, because that's what kind of draws you to each other. That's, one of those things can be the feminine, masculine polarity. But you also want to have commonalities, because that's what makes you feel comfortable. That's what makes you feel stable. That's what makes you feel like things, like you understand what's happening, like you have some sense of control and stability in the relationship, which is really, really important for long-term health. And so it can be anything, right? You can have any kinds of even little things, right? Like just favorite foods, music, or just moments that you're both grateful for. So you build on success. So have things that you already have and then build on those things that you already have. So if you have any questions for me, ask the questions in the chat. I am going to go over the 4 different parts of the partnership principle here one more time, and then I'm going to go over the questions that y'all have for me today. All right, so partnership principle, four parts of it that we're going to be talking about are: 1, you have matching values; 2, being on the same team; 3 is that he needs to feel like you get him; and then 4, you need to have some likeness, commonalities, that kind of thing, things that are in common. All right, so what do you guys have for me today? Hello, everybody. First time watching? Well, welcome there, Garanatas. Thanks for being here. Hello. Hello. I love you. Won't you tell me your name? Lots of yeses. All right. So what do we got? Religion is very important. Yeah, it's very important to a lot of people. Set Apart Way says, Matt, do these things work for Middle Eastern men? I heard it can be different due to religion. Well, it depends on what you mean, right? Like everybody wants somebody that's like on this journey together. There are cultural differences that can come into play specifically inside the partnership principle, depending on how your culture is and what it looks like. If your marriages, I don't know what marriages in the Middle East are like, but if you guys have marriages where I've heard in some cultures, potentially in the Middle East, where the close bonding and close friendships aren't with, your partner or your wife. It's actually with like men with other men and women with other women. And so that's potentially something that could be going on there. you'd have to tell me in your culture. I'm not that familiar with Middle Eastern culture to know and let you know about it. But assuming that you guys have a deep relationship with each other, then this is something that would apply to your situation. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope that makes sense to you. Women from all over the world. It's so cool seeing all these women from everywhere. From everywhere. From everywhere. Janice says 68 him, 56, both retired, finally a marriage mate. Love your stuff even at my age. Well, awesome. Good job, Janice. High five to that. Kicking butt, taking names, living the life that you've always wanted to live. So keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Thelma says, how can you make a man feel respected? That's a great question. So respect, if you think about what respect is, I actually spent a lot of time thinking about and studying the word respect because it's a very important word for most men who are out there. And what I figured out is respect really means appreciation, right? It means high value, right? Valuing something very highly, appreciating it very, very highly. And so the way that men feel respected in a lot of ways is by allowing them to be men, right? Or appreciating them for being men, appreciating their intelligence, appreciating their ability to be an authority in their world, appreciating their ability to be smart and strong and capable and doing really well as a man. And anytime you can find ways where you can either push a man into a masculine role or appreciate him for his accomplishments, his his ability to be a man, his characteristics that he has of being a man and his depth into those things. So for instance, let's say that he works out, that, and you can tell he's like a really strong and buff man. That's something that you can appreciate him for, or his ability to take charge of different situations, or leading things, leading dates, leading other men, taking charge in situations where there's other men involved, taking a stand for something strong and important in his life, right? Making an impact in people's lives around him, mentoring other men or boys, men who are younger than him or boys. Anytime that a man's doing those kinds of things, just appreciating him for that, right? Or thanking him for those things, or just acknowledging him for those things. Anytime you can see him and acknowledge him for being a man, for being strong, for being capable, for being a masculine in any way, that is a great way to show a man that you respect him and make him feel like he's respected. I hope that helps you there, Thelma. Mary says, my hair looks great. Well, I appreciate that. I've been working on this hair for a while now, and I appreciate compliments. So anytime you can give me a compliment, I appreciate it. It's one of my top love languages, words of affirmation. So thank you. All right. So what else do we have here? What other questions? Hades says, how about the person who doesn't give you the same energy? Like you give so much, but he does not return the same love you really deserve. Well, you need to question whether you actually want to be with somebody like that. Like a lot of people are like, oh, manipulate him or say these magic things or, push him this way or push him that way. You need to decide, right? Because especially if this has been going on for a while, if you've been dating each other for a while, and you're putting a whole bunch of energy and effort and stuff into a relationship, do you want to be with somebody who's not going to invest and put a lot into the relationship? Some women, yeah, they do want that. And it's okay with them because of the guy that they're with, and they don't want to lose the guy. But what you have to question is whether being with the guy is more important or having the relationship that you want is more important, because you're not going to force this man to be the man that you want him to be, right? There are certain things you can influence him, you can encourage him, you can, give him a direction that you want him to go into. But at the end of the day, he's either committed to you in the relationship, he's either in it or he's not. And you have to decide, if he's not really in it, whether that's a guy that you want to be with and whether that's something that you want to be in. Now, if you've already invested a lot, which it sounds like that's what the case is, then one of the things that you have to think about is your emotions, right? Because the more you invest in something, the more you start getting attached to it, the more that you start allowing yourself to fall in love with it, the more you feel like you don't want to let it go. And so if you're in that situation with this guy, you might not be thinking very clearly about what it is that you actually want. And you might start acting up because you want him to act differently, but he's not behaving the right way. And you need to look at this long term, because this is a pattern that he's in. And you need to communicate, make sure that you communicate what it is that you want very clearly, because a lot of times women, and I totally get this is a very common thing. Women think, I don't want to have to teach a man how to treat me. But here's the thing, right? And I totally get that. I totally understand that. However, every woman that a man has ever been with before you has completely different expectations and desires for how they want to be treated and what they'll tolerate from a man than you do. Every single one of them, guaranteed. And so to a certain extent, you're going to have to teach a man. You're going to have to show him what it is that you want. You're going to have to communicate to him that you have certain standards, that you have certain desires, that certain things make you feel loved. Because he might have been with a woman before who loved to get presents, who loved to go shopping. But what you want is you want to have a guy who, just spends a lot of quality time with you and looks you in the eyes and tells you how amazing and beautiful and wonderful you are. And so he thinks, because he has this prior reference, that that's what you want. But you think, no, this is the thing that I want. And so it's very important that you communicate with him what it is that you want, because guys aren't mind readers. And every woman that he's ever dated has always been different. He's probably had different role models in his life of, relationships and how they function and what, they want in that. He might not make the relationship a priority right now. I mean, there could be all kinds of things. And so you want to communicate what it is that you want, and you want to connect with him in a way that's fulfilling his needs and making him feel amazing, assuming that you're already in a relationship, which you may be or may not. However, here's what you want to do. You want to put a date on it, right? So let's just say it's 3 months into the future from now, Haiti, and you say, okay, I'm going to give my all to this relationship and connect with him and love him and connect with his needs and fulfill his needs in the right way, right? Which most women are giving too much to a man, and they're doing things that men don't want them to do. Men usually require just a few little things, but it's those specific things that they need. And so you need to find out what those things are for him and connect with him in that way and give it all towards those specific things. And then make sure you're communicating what it is that you want. And then let's say 3 months down the road, you have a limit where you're like, if he's not changing, if things aren't changing, if he's not going to give to this relationship, that's when I'm going to pull out and decide that this isn't for me anymore. And once that date comes, then you can communicate with him, or up to that date, you can communicate with him and just let him know that this is what you're doing. That way he's not surprised. And most guys will tell you what's going on with them. They'll say, hey, I can't give you what it is that you want. Or they'll say, you know what, I'm going to do my best because I don't want to lose you. And so I'm going to give everything to the relationship. And then you have to see whether his words are backed up by action or not. And so that's kind of the situation that you're in, Haiti, and that's what you want to do to find out and, create what it is that you want and see if he's going to create what it is that you want or not. I hope that helps you. I hope that helps you. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. I hope it does. All right, let's see. Shannon says, I get it. I was married 18 years, 5 kids. He skipped, but these are all the tools we used. Few areas lacking divorce since 2018. He left us. He was an assistant pastor, but from experience, Mr. Matthew, you speak the truth. Okay. Well, I appreciate you saying that, Shannon. Christina says, what if you dress like a lady, but you're a tomboy at heart? I dress for attention. Well, there's the problem that you're going to run into, Christina, if you dress for attention, but you're a completely different person at heart, right? If this isn't who you are and you're just doing that and it's like totally incongruent with who you are as a person and you're literally just doing that for attention, you might be getting the wrong kind of attention and you might be sending the wrong kind of message to men. And so you want to dress and you want to look good and you want to, do things that make you look good, but you want to do it in congruence with who it is as you are as a person, right? And you don't want to, put on this big show only to be like, you're like, oh, this is the show, right? And then you're like, boom, here I am, right? And you're a totally different person than you kind of portrayed yourself to be through your clothing. You don't want to do that because what's going to happen is it's going to feel like a bait and switch for the guy a lot of times, right? Some guys, it might be a welcome switch because there's a lot of guys doing that as well, right? And so you want to have congruence. You want to be authentic. You want to have clothing and style that reflect who you are and what you're doing. And you don't want it to be this thing that you do for show and then you're in your pajamas all the time after the third or fourth date or once you guys become in a relationship or whatever, right? Because it's deceiving to a lot of guys. And it's like one of the number one things that guys complain about. I actually have a cousin who got married a couple of years ago. And after he got married, his demeanor totally changed. And I was talking to him about it because he had been dating this girl for years before they got married. And I was like, what happened? Like, what happened with you? Why are you acting like this? How's your marriage or whatever? And he's like, oh, well, she tricked me for 8 years, right? She tricked me and she tried to pretend like she was this outgoing person that wanted to do all these things and go and do all these places. And he's like, the day after we got married, she completely stopped doing all those things that she had been doing up until that point. And she told me that it wasn't really her. And he's like, I feel like she tricked me. And she tricked me for years just so that we could get married. And now we're married and she's a completely different person than who she said she was. And there's plenty of women. I guarantee that right now there are plenty of women in our community who've had this exact same experience with some men that they've dated or that they've gotten married to, where they thought he was a certain way. And then when they got married or they got into a relationship or a couple months down the road after they were hooked, all of a sudden they find out that he's a completely different guy. And so you don't want to fake a whole bunch of stuff going on ever, Christina. You want to connect with people in a real, authentic way. Be real. Be real. Keep it real, Christina. That's my advice to you. Keep it real. Yep. Yep. Kelly says, just so you know, you are smoking hot. Are you talking to me, Kelly? I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Big hands. Who has big hands? I have big hands? Okay. We'll go with that. Savita says, thank you for the good advice for finding a husband. Well, you are absolutely welcome, Savita. Thiqui says, any advice on long distance off late? I seem to be checking on him, but he doesn't initiate. He did in the, but he seemed to go kind of cold. We haven't met yet. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of things that I have a whole program about that. I have videos about long distance stuff. I mean, yeah, one, you don't want to smother the guy, right? If you're the only one who's initiating contact in a long distance relationship, you might want to rethink what's going on there, because it's always in the best interest of women if the guy is the one who's initiating most of the contact. And my suggestion for all women out there, all of you, is that if you haven't met a man yet, don't get overly attached to him. Continue dating other people and continue and don't allow yourself to get overly attached to a man that you've never met in person, because I mean, sometimes it works, right? It works sometimes. Long distance, where you've never met the guy, you talk for months or a year, 2 years, you meet up, you fall in love, you get married, all that kind of stuff. It works. However, most of the time it doesn't, right? And a lot of times what ends up happening is you end up meeting the person in real life and they're nothing like who they were when you were talking to them online. And so you don't want to get overly attached to some dude that you've never met before, because this kind of stuff's going to start happening. And it's like, you don't even know who this guy is, right? And you're attached. You're overly attached to him. And so my suggestion is that you break that attachment. You stop over investing in this dude. You make it something where if he's planning and he is coming to meet you, that's great. If he's not doing it, then date other people and make sure you're connecting with other people, and only start connecting deeper with a man and investing emotionally in a man that you've actually met in person in the real world with before. That's my suggestion, because otherwise there's a high probability chance that you're just going to hurt yourself doing this. And I don't want to see that for you, Fiqui, and I don't think you want to see that for you either. So thanks for being here, Fiqui. Fiqui, I hope that's your name. Fiqui, I hope that's your name. Rivage says, Matt, how will I know if the relationship is still on or the man is still serious? Well, you got to tell us more about your scenario, right? I could do a whole program on that, right? And I might actually. I think that's going to be there. I have a new program that's coming out, and I'm actually talking about all of those things. And the biggest thing that you want to look for, though, and I talked about this in the last video that I just did, and that is consistency over time. Because that is one of the most important, because there are guys out there that are going to love bomb you. They're going to fake it with you. And what they found, they've done studies on this. And what they found is that it usually takes at least 3 months for you to start even really getting to know a person. Before that time, it's mostly just a mask. With most people, you're mostly just meeting a mask up into that around the 3-month point of consistently meeting somebody and dating them and being with them. And so you want long-term consistency. If he starts pulling back, if he starts disappearing, if he starts being confused, if he starts doing all these things in the earlier phases of things, it's like, it's like, right? He's not consistent. And so you want long-term consistency. Short-term consistency is okay, and it can work. And I know people that have made it work, but I know a lot more people who they've tried, there's a short-term consistency thing that happened, and you showed that he really liked you short-term, but long-term, all of a sudden he's disappearing. He doesn't care anymore. It's, He's no longer interested. And so you want long-term consistency, and I hope that helps you. Let me know if you have any other questions. Let me know if you have any other questions. Shem says, did I ruin my chance after 2 dates if I accidentally implied I'd other things I wanted to do than see him this weekend? Self-sabotage. I've since explained to him that I acted out of fear. No response. Well, here's the thing, it's more likely that you are sabotaging things right now than it is that you sabotage things before, when you implied that you had other things going on that weekend. It is possible that you did, right? Whenever you deny a guy like that, if he's like, hey, I want to hang out this weekend, and you're like, well, I got a bunch of other things going on, sorry, right? What you want to do is say, I'd love to hang out with you this weekend. I'm going to be really busy this weekend though, and I've got a lot of things. So I think maybe next week would be better. And then, right. So first you're telling him that you do want to spend time with him. This is the best way to reject a guy, right? Where you want him to continue moving towards you, is you tell him that you'd love to hang out with him, but that you're not going to be able to do it this weekend because of whatever things you have going on. And then what you want to do is give him an alternative date that you want to meet up with him later, right? Like, hey, can Monday work? Or, hey, I'm going to be free Tuesday evening. Let me know if that works for you. And then he can come back, right? So whenever you're communicating back and forth, especially in the early phases of dating, you want to think of it like ping pong or a tennis match, or I don't know, one of those games where you're hitting balls back and forth to each other, right? And so you hit it, he hits it, you hit it, he hits it, you hit it, he hits it, right? And you want to continue to let him know that you're interested. And if you're not available, you want to open things up to let him know that you still want to see him, and that there's another possibility, right? And then you put it into his hands, and then if he's going to be available during that time, can tell you when he's going to be available and all that kind of stuff. And then you can go back and forth until you guys end up meeting and going on a date and falling in love, and, having little babies together and buying a house and white picket fence and a little dog named Toto and all that kind of stuff, right? All that kind of stuff. It's going to happen in your future there. And so what you don't want to do is come from a place of insecurity, which is what you are talking about right here, where you say that you acted out of fear and all this other stuff. Like, that is not what you want to do, right? You don't want to do that, right? Like, oh, I just screwed up, and I was acting. No, right? Because basically what you just did is you threw a bunch of insecurities that you have onto the conversation, and you're not even third date yet. And that's something that, if you do kind of talk about those things, one, you don't want to act out of it, because what you're doing right now is you're acting through your insecurities. The best way to be vulnerable and reveal your vulnerabilities is to come through talking through it and not, acting out of it. So when you talk through it, you meet up and you're like, yeah, sometimes I get really afraid and I say dumb things and stuff, and whatever, right? Like, that's talking through it. And to everybody, that's relatable. But when you're like, hey, I'm sorry what I said the other day, and I was just coming from this place of fear, and I didn't know what to say, and so I kind of rejected you, but I didn't really mean to, and so I hope you still like me. Do you still want to meet with me? Maybe we can hang out again, right? That's acting through it. And when you're acting through it, it's literally one of the most cringe-inducing, unattractive things that a human being, man or woman, can do. And so you want to speak through it and not act through it. I hope that makes sense there. I know that maybe, I mean, maybe you've ruined things with them. Who knows, right? Who knows? My suggestion is that you don't try to ruin anything anymore with them, right? And just give him some space and let him come back. And if he's still interested and still attracted and there's enough attraction there from the beginning, then it won't be a big deal. If he wasn't that attracted to begin with and it was just something that he was kind of doing, but then you kind of spewed out your insecurities and it kind of like repulsed him and whatever, then it's okay. Just use it as a learning experience, right? In a space where you can grow from and say, how can I use this experience that I just had to be stronger and be better and create a better life for myself in the future? Set Apart Way says, what is the chance a man will come back after you ended it? Well, if you're ending it, you're probably the one that needs to go back, right? Not him. So if you're the one who broke up with him, don't expect him to come back to you. You're probably the one that's going to need to go back to him because you're the one that ended things, right? You ended stuff with that person. If you want it to go again, you're going to have to reconnect and, rebuild things and let him know that you're interested again, because you could have just totally killed everything. Excuse me. All right. Deborah says, I have been intimate with one guy 8 months ago, but I have another guy interested in me. If the other guy goes long periods of time without talking, should I go forward with the second one? It depends on what you mean with long periods without talking. Deborah, I teach something in everything that I do, and it's called abundance dating. In abundance dating, the way that abundance dating works is abundance dating is coming from a place where you have lots of different men and they come and they prove to you that they are the right man for you. And so what you need to do, Deborah, is you need to figure out what kind of a relationship it is that you want to have. And then these men get to compete for which one shall be that man. Thus thou taketh thy hand and leadeth you to the relationship promised land. And if neither one is stepping up and showing you that they're the right guy for you, then neither one of them end up getting to take your hand and be in that relationship that you want to have. And so you need to, I don't know how long, long periods of time without talking. Long is a very, very relative thing, right? To some people, a long time is a month. To some people, a long time is a few days. To other people, a long time is 5 minutes. And those people where a long time is 5 minutes, you gotta be very comfortable. You have to really love on that kind of a person because they have a short time span of what a long time is. And so I can't tell you that because you're the only one that knows what a long time is and what kind of a relationship you want to get into, Deborah Fiddler. And so you're going to have to decide that. But my suggestion is that you communicate to these men what kind of a relationship it is that you want to have, because men aren't mind readers. They don't know what it is that you want. And you're going to have to let them know how to lead you to the relationship that you want to have. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense with you, Deborah. Nicole says, does a relationship work if there's an age difference, like more than 10 years? Yes, it can, and it cannot. Age doesn't determine what makes a relationship work. Values determine what makes a relationship work. Connection determines what makes a relationship work. Needs being fulfilled determines what makes a relationship work. Growing together determines what makes a relationship work. If you guys are couples that grow together, they stay together. And so you want to look at his values. You want to connect with him in all the ways that I talk about and all the stuff that I'm doing, Nicole. And age, there are some things about age, right? Let's say you date a guy who's 15 years older than you. It's likely that he's going to die way before you, because men die earlier than women already, let alone if you're 15 years younger than him. Right? That's something that can happen. If he's 15 years younger than you, and let's say you're in your mid 40s or something, he might want to have kids and you may not be able to have kids anymore. And so that's something, right? That's a values thing that we talked about that you want to talk with him about and communicate so that you guys are on the same page. And one day he's not like, hey, I want to have a family and I know you can't have a family. And so I need to be with somebody that wants to have a family, and then it crushes your heart and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of things, right? Those are the things that make a relationship work. Age difference is not that big of a deal, in my opinion. There can be challenges with it, right? Some men get sick at some point, or if they don't work out or whatever, which is the majority of people on the planet, then, there could be problems with his health. So it just depends. It depends on what you're talking about there, Nicole. I hope that helped you out. I hope that helped you out. Crystal says, I had all the 4 topics, but he cheated on me with 3 women and I didn't know it. I was broken. Well, Crystal, I can tell you already that you didn't have all 4 of the topics, because you didn't have topic number 1, right? And topic number 1 was values. His values, and, it's one of those things where, you obviously didn't know it. And so it's, we're not blaming you or anything, but his values weren't in alignment. His values are that when things aren't going well in the relationship, or when things are going well in the relationship, he seeks connection outside of the relationship. That's one of his values. That's a pattern that he's in. And so that relationship was doomed from the very, very beginning, because he was going to go and do that regardless of what was going on with you, because that's a reflection of his values, who he is, the kind of man that he is or lack of, right? His character or lack of. And so it's one of those things where values are very, like I said, they're very, very, very important. And one of his values is that it's okay for him to cheat on his partner in a marriage or relationship or whatever you guys had. And that sucks. And it sucks you didn't know it. And, I hope that you can take value from that and change the meaning of the event and realize that it's not your fault, and that, and take that event and allow yourself to grow and get into a better relationship as a result of it. I hope that helps you there. I hope that helps you. That's like my go-to song. I hope that helps you. Yeah. Kelly says, how would a woman approach the topic of change in financial situations? I work long hours to make enough money to support myself. I don't always want this to be my reality. Well, some men are, you just like, if you're actually in a relationship with him, which is what I'm guessing you are, right? What you want to look at, because what tends to happen, right, is precedents, right? There tend to be precedents in relationships. And so if you're not actually in a relationship yet, you want to make sure that there are frames being set and precedents being set, patterns being built, right? So how is he treating you right now? Is he taking care of things? Are you taking care of things? Are you one of those strong, independent women that, is like, I need to pay for my meals every single time. You can't pay for my meals because I'm a strong woman, right? There are a lot of women out there that are like that these days. And so you need to figure out, like, what are the patterns that have already been going on up until now? And if you're in a relationship, you just need to have a real conversation. Just have a real conversation with them. Just sit them down and say, hey, I've been looking at what I'm doing for work, and I think that I'd be a lot happier, and I'd feel a lot better about myself if I wasn't working so much. But if I wasn't working so much, that would create a situation where I didn't have as much money. And I know that we're kind of doing things 50-50 right now, or whatever it is that you guys are doing. And just say, hey, what do you think about, being in a situation where, we're in a loving relationship and, we're getting our needs met, and I'm not contributing as much to, the financial portion of things as you are, and just ask him, how he feels about that. Most guys will be okay with it. Some won't be. Some will want you to start doing other things, right? So if he's especially with more traditional relationships, a lot of times guys are like, if I'm going to be the breadwinner and I'm going to be paying for everything and doing everything, you need to, you do be in the female role, right? Which a lot of women don't want to do, right? A lot of women these days, they don't want to be the home caretaker person that traditionally was what women did. And, and so it's one of those things where it depends on him. It depends on you. And you just have to have a real conversation with him about it and see where he is and how he feels about it. And he'll let you know, right? You'll see it through his emotions, the way that he reacts to you. And, if he's like, I don't know, that it's going to be a problem and that there are already issues that are coming up around that. And which is one of those things, right? Like a lot of times people want things to change, especially women. Women tend to want things to change in relationships. Men tend to want things to stay the same as they were when they first started. But it could be different for the man that you're dating or in a relationship with. And so you want to have that communication and just make sure you're on the same page, right? And find out whether this is a man that you can be in a relationship with where he is going to be the provider or not, because he might not want to be. He might be one of those people that feels like, a lot of women abuse the system and all that kind of stuff. And they just want all the things that they get in equality, but not give anything, to the equality back or whatever, which is a common belief system that a lot of men have these days. Not all men do that, right? Not all men feel that way or think that way. A lot of men are just like, hey, as long as you're, doing the female things and taking care of me emotionally and, or whatever. Some of them don't even care about that. They're just like, hey, I just love you and I want to be with you. And I don't care if you're bringing money financially to the situation or not. I just want to stay with you and I love you and I don't want you to go anywhere. And so I'm okay if that's the situation. If I have to work more, or we have to find other ways to make money or whatever, I'm okay with that as long as we're together. And so a lot of guys, it depends on the guy, right? It depends on him and his mentality and what his belief systems are and all that kind of stuff. And the only way that you're going to find that out is by actually having a real conversation with them. So I hope that helps, Kelly. I hope that helps. El Rio says, love your point of view. Thanks for sharing. You're so right. Well, I like your point of view, El Rio. I think you're right. So thank you. 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 Victoria Rose says, how can I get my man to communicate, especially when he has anger issues? He's not abusive, but he have outbursts. Well, what you want to do, because you're not going to get him to communicate necessarily. I mean, you might get him to communicate. And the way that you do that is by connecting with him in ways that lower his walls. And so what you want to do is, some guys are touchy-feely guys, some guys aren't. And a woman's touch can like melt some men, right? Like my number one love language is physical touch. Second one is words of affirmation. But if a woman like touches my hair, touches the back of my neck, like my neck, just, like touches me like that, it can just absolutely make me melt and just, just whatever, right? Kind of fall into it. And so what you want to do is just connect with them, right? If you're feeling scared or whatever, or you're confused or whatever, you can just communicate your feelings, right? Get him into his feelings by allowing yourself to drop into your feelings and then communicating through your feelings. Helena Hart, our fellow coach here, actually does a lot of work around that kind of stuff, where she uses like feeling statements, like, oh, I feel, just really, I feel really scared right now. I feel a little like concerned. I feel, warm. I feel whatever kind of feelings come up for you, sensations come up with you, just communicating through that and connecting with him through those communication patterns, which, can seem a little bit weird if you've never done it before, but when you're doing that with a man, it can be really, really powerful. Not putting any judgments on him, not any expectations, not trying to make him communicate, but just connecting with him through that. A lot of times guys will just open up and start talking, or, just communicate with you or connect with you in a deeper way through that when you're connecting with your emotions, because a lot of guys don't know how to manage their emotions like that. And so when you're coming through it and he feels you, a lot of times men will slip into their emotions and communicate in different ways that you had no idea that they would communicate with, because you're connecting with them in that way. So I hope that helps you there, Victoria. Evelyn says, you are a great advisor. Well, I appreciate you are a great person that is here with us right now, Evelyn. I think you're amazing and awesome. So thank you. Thank you. Amaka says, I like the way you take people's questions. I mean, your advice is quite professional and great. Well, thank you. Appreciate all these compliments. Thank you, everybody, for the compliments. It's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Anonymous Facebook user who's probably in our group says, my husband was cheating, going on dating websites, saying they were scams, charged $40 to our joint banking account. They told me it was a dating website. I'm brokenhearted. When I confronted him, he packed all of his stuff, moved out, and will not talk to me. Well, I am sorry to hear about that. And that sounds like an incredibly challenging and difficult and painful situation that you're in there, anonymous Facebook user. And I mean, there's a lot of, if he's not committed to the relationship, there's really not a whole lot that you can do about it. And he went some kind of crazy way. He's probably embarrassed out of his mind, which is why he did that, right? Why he left, because he had this secret that he wasn't telling you about, and he went and did it. And then you found out about it. And he's like, not the man that he was trying to portray himself as. And so that's a painful situation, and it sucks. And there's not a whole lot that you can do outside, for that right now. You can wait for him to reconnect with you. You can let him know, if you're interested in continuing things with him, that you are interested in continuing things. If he's willing to go to therapy or counseling or whatever about those. But this is a pattern that he has. And so that sucks. And I'm sorry to hear about that. And, what you need to do right now is you need to change the meaning of the event and just think of it as an experience that's designed to help you grow, and that's guiding you towards creating a better life for yourself, and teaching you some lessons that you need to learn about something in your life. I'm not sure exactly what it is. There could be a whole bunch of different things that are going on there. And so you'll have to look at that and figure that out. But right now, what you need to do is just love yourself and take care of yourself, And remember that you're a valuable woman and that you're a valuable human being, and that other people's actions don't determine your value. And don't allow your self-esteem to be determined by the confused actions of a man who isn't loving you and treating you right and treating you well. And just know that you deserve better. You deserve to have a man who loves you and cherishes you and looks at you and doesn't go to dating websites, but looks at you and says, you're the only woman that I want. You're the only woman that I want to be with. I don't want to be with anybody else. You're enough for me. And that's what you deserve. That's what you should have in your life. And I know that's not something that you have right now, and that's okay. We're all on this journey of life together, and things happen that we don't expect. But in my experience, the most powerful thing that you can do is trust that you're being guided towards something bigger. Trust that you're being guided towards something better in your future. See the future as something brighter and bigger and better than anything that you've had in your past. And so today I just want to close things with just going back over the Queen's mantra again. We're going to say it 3 times. Here it goes. I'm valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. Just remember those words and say them anytime when you're feeling frustrated, when you're feeling like you're not enough, when you're feeling like you're not valuable, when you're feeling hurt because people aren't treating you the way that you want to be treated. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. And remember that you are valuable. You are worthy. And you do deserve to be cherished. So thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey to getting into the relationship that you've always wanted to have. And remember, I have a new program that's going to be coming out here pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. Thank you again for being here. And I will speak with you again soon. And always remember, you are worth it. Have a good night. Have a good day. Have a good evening, everyone. And I'll speak with you again soon.